in many respects, exceptional rule in Singapore, or other forms, a traditional Confucian form of government, perhaps. The Chinese people deserve better. They've had better in the past, and this is outrageous that this Western import continues to have the Chinese people in this headlock. And that headlock is reinforced by all of those who are wedded towards supporting the CCP no matter what.
And I think it's just of vital importance, Brad, as you've pointed out in your various works, as we do in the indictment, we have no better ally in trying to bring about the end of the Chinese Communist Party than the people who've suffered most at their hands, namely the Chinese people. And it's just horrific what they've been subjected to. By some estimates, 100 million of them have been killed, probably many more times over than that. But Brad, thank you for this work and for holding forth on the need to not help our enemy and, in fact, to help bring down the Chinese Communist Party. Keep up the great work, my friend. I'll be right back.
Thank you very much.
Keep up the great work. We'll get back to you. Keep up the great work, my friend. Come back to us again soon if you would. I hope the rest of you will do the same tomorrow. Till then, go forth and multiply.
Shining the light on the lunatics on the left. They mock him.
I just think you're dumb.
Hillary's book blamed him.
A prominent Trump supporter, Aubrey Shines, produced an online video attacking me.
John Oliver mocks him, calls him a nut job from Tampa. Trump thanked him. So he continues to shine the light.
We can do better, we will do better, but we'll only make it happen if you are informed. That's what we're here to do.
America shines when you're connected to Aubrey Shines. Here's your host, Aubrey Shines.
The number one social problem in America is not systemic racism. It is the epidemic of fatherlessness. Nearly 70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Up, by the way, from 24% since 1965. Black kids are growing up without proper role models at home to teach them simple things like what's right and what's wrong. Crime is destroying the black community, and the root cause is fatherlessness, which leads black kids early in their lives down the path of criminality, at which point Democrats cry mass incarceration instead of looking for ways to alleviate the suffering caused by this epidemic. Biden-type Democrats choose to deny it, by the way. Instead, they blame systemic racism, but that doesn't make the truth disappear. I want to introduce you to our outstanding guest, Duran Smith, to address this issue. Duran is a partner at Denton's Global Advisors Government Relations. Mr. Smith served as a deputy assistant to the president for the White House Domestic Policy Council and the Office of American Innovation. He has spearheaded initiatives such as criminal justice reform, workforce development, opportunity zones, and other. Duran has also played a very important role in policy development and social change in the D.C. metropolitan area throughout this service in the nonprofit and political sectors. Duran, I'm so glad that you've taken a moment of your time. I want to address several topics here today. I had the opportunity, as you, to be with then candidate Trump, went on the country speaking on and with him on just an array of various topics. And we keep hearing the same narrative that is being pushed by mainstream media, that the real issue is this racial inequality crap that they continue to feed as they have since the founding of the Democratic Party. Duran, what's wrong with this narrative?
Well, the truth is there's a number of different things that is creating disparities in America, and not all of these disparities exist just chiefly on race. There's a lot of, if you look at the country, the poverty statistic is broken up in thirds. A third Hispanic, a third white, and a third Black. You also see that unlike maybe 60, 70 years ago, there's a lot more African Americans who are middle class and upper middle class or have achieved success and are running organizations. And so I think if we're trying to look at solutions, we need to kind of meet the moment where it's at. And it's a number of different things. You mentioned the family breakdown in communities. You have some communities and some families that have second, third generation not really having a male in the household. You also have lack of infrastructure around churches and jobs, as well as terrible education, and as well as avenues to crime. And so what you've seen develop in so many low-income areas, including in the Black communities, is a powder keg of no opportunity and less diamonism. And so what we tried to do in the Trump administration, which is explained in my book, is create a holistic response to this issue by looking at public safety, looking at opportunity and economic development, and creating jobs in a way that we're encouraging civil society to be more responsible for their community than having an over-reliance on the government.
You know, I'm glad that you said that. I address this issue also in my book. I've addressed this issue various places I lecture. And one of the things I keep hearing, Duran, over and over again is, well, we don't have the same opportunities. And I know it's not historically accurate at all. As a matter of fact, when any individual looks at even during Revolutionary War, post, when you go through the Jim Crow laws, you're going to always see the same group of individuals that continue to push what I call the color issue. And the reason I choose, Duran, not to use race, as a Christian, I believe there's really only one race. I believe there are multiplicity ethnic groups. That's fine. But when I look at the data, Duran, case in point, when a Black and white wait to have children, get married, have education, same group, same dynamic, there's no difference economically. There is no difference as it relates to prison, zero difference at all. But yet, when I look at this current administration, when I look at the Democratic Party as a whole, they keep pushing this same narrative. Even individual groups, the Breakfast Club, Joy Reid, others, they keep race as the top narrative. What are they getting wrong here, Duran?
Well, I think they're not meeting the community where they are. You know, I am a person who's always lived in the community, And I have opportunity to kind of see the challenges that people are dealing with every day. And if you had to ask a person on the street, is really getting job opportunities probably first and foremost. In this Biden economy, affordability has become another issue. And then you have issues around crime. In many cases in these communities, less than 1% of individuals are perpetrating all the crime. And so the need for police, the need for job opportunities, and the need for better education is the rallying cry. Yet leaders who represent these communities are talking about issues that aren't even at the forefront of these communities. And so what we've done is categorize solutions, free market solutions in our book, Underserved, that kind of talks about what the community wants. And I think President Trump did a good job at creating policy wins that built trust with those underserved communities, which is why you see an increased number of interested voters in looking at Donald Trump or the Republican Party platform as being a platform of empowerment. And so we wrote this book to kind of talk more about what those policy prescriptions are. But you named some of them. It's certainly investing in the family, it's investing in education, investing in jobs and opportunity, and also community safety.
You know, we're going to put your book up because I think everyone that is in our audience, we have a very large, vast audience here, they need to really pay attention to what, Jaron, you're really doing, because I know that you're really echoing the heart of so many, yet we're not seeing this lived out in our media at all. Again, I'm going to be showing a clip or two here in our next segment with you, and I really want to get your response on this, because we keep hearing the same narrative, that it is systemic racism. Yet the numbers don't add up. Again, when we're talking about, Jerome, when we're even talking about, for instance, education or prison reform, it took Donald Trump to come in and say, hey, look, let's look at this from a different angle. The first president to have what was in prison reform. But yet this message, Jerron, is not getting out in the media. They continue to, what I call, have a narrative that is intentional to make sure that individuals don't hear the Jerron Smiths of this community. Yet they push others. They push guys like Charlemagne. They push the DJ Envies. They push the Joy Reids to speak on behalf, as if though the black community is this monolithic community that don't have another viewpoint, that there isn't another objective. We're coming right back with Jerron. You don't want to miss. I think he's one of the brightest voices that are out here, and we're going to pay attention not just to his words, but I'm going to introduce his book to you as well. I think it's something worth every one of you taking time. Let's find out more. We're coming right back.
Shouting battle cry of freedom, the Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitor. battle cry of freedom.
I believe Jerron Smith is one of the greatest voices out here. I really believe that everyone should pay attention. We're going to make sure that his book is posted on this show. Again, I think it's going to be a must read because he has a certain sobriety, a certain calmness that he just really addresses the facts. There's not a lot of emotion without data that's really just, in my opinion, tied to Jerron. And I think this is what's going to make the difference here. Jerron, I'm so glad that you've joined us. I want to go into a clip. This happened just a few weeks back. And again, I know Larry Elder and I have had the opportunity. I've been on his show before. I think he's one of the brightest guys that really is out. I think his voice is a voice like yours that often is squashed by the legacy media because it doesn't fit their narrative. Larry was engaged, Jerron, on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne and DJ Envy and a few other individuals. And it was laughable. It was hurtful. They were incredibly disrespectful. But I thought I would take a moment. I wanted to share at least part of this with our audience. I want to get your opinion on this particular clip. Jerron, when we come back, love to hear your voice on it. Let's go to this clip, please.
Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, "I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Mm-hmm. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and then several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the 3 largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard. Right?
Wow. Jerron, love to hear your opinion, sir, on what you just heard.
Sure. I think that Mr. Elder made a lot of really good points. I think that the one thing that the community is looking at is probably the vestiges of what the government has created, and that's concentrated poverty throughout the country. If you remember redlining, when the government decided that they would not give loans and economic empowerment to certain neighborhoods and kind of outline areas of the country where they concentrated poverty. And then post-integration, you had a lot of affluent African Americans leave some of these concentrated, impoverished areas. And then on top of drugs coming into those communities, the vestige that the leftover of that has been broken communities throughout the country that happen to be African Americans. And then that speaks to like the statistics when you're talking about education numbers, and opportunity numbers, wealth gap numbers. And so I'm looking at it as meeting the moment where it's at. And some of that isn't because of the government. And quite frankly, some communities aren't even black. Some of those communities, because of some of the policies that have been in place, are white or Hispanic. And what we've been focusing on through the Underserved book is figuring out how we can empower all underserved communities, white, black, Hispanic, because of some of the misguided work of the government and concentrating poverty. You know, we've created a whole segment of underclass individuals or underserved individuals throughout America. And what our North Star was under President Trump was going into those forgotten communities, making America the land of opportunity again, and helping pull those communities up so that we can leverage all the best of America, despite the zip codes. But this narrative just to blanketly say racism without being very specific about the problems and challenges that we're trying to face. Like you mentioned, when you look at families, when you look at institutions that are in that community or access to capital, those are more specific issues, and then we can talk about specific solutions. And that's what we're focused on. We're focused on kind of using that Lincoln playbook of being intentional with a reconstruction model that empowers all communities so that no matter where you go throughout America, you can see human flourishing all across the place.
No, I love your laser-like focus. This is why we're going to make sure that Undeserved is a part of the show today here as well. Yet when I hear, Jerron, individuals like Charlamagne, I'm not just singling him out, but again, he makes several $1 million a year, and I champion that. That's great. I wish he made $1 billion, but I wish that he was factual. I wish that individuals like him, and Joy Reid and some of the others, would just give data. Don't give me your opinion. Everyone's entitled, but no one is entitled to their own group of facts. And when I hear you speaking about going into these zip codes and making sure things are different, Jerron, how do we do that when 20 plus million illegal people are here that are challenging some of those various jobs? And it wasn't, by the way, some white racist that said that. That was Barack Hussein Obama. When he wrote his book, he said that anytime you have this influx of illegals that are coming into the country, again, this was not Donald Trump, this was not Aubrey Shines, this was Barack Hussein Obama. He said it would challenge and it would throw off the balance of men and women that are in these communities, poor, white, brown, black individuals. And he says, you bring in individuals that should not be a part of that narrative legally, he said, you will totally eradicate those communities. Jerron, when you hear then individuals like the Charlamagnes and others, why are they getting this wrong, Jerron?
Well, I used to be a Democrat growing up, and I was always taught this piece that all Republicans were racist and they were only for the rich. I never learned about the real history of the party and the North Star about limited government and what the chance of individualism really means. And so after reading books, de Tocqueville, reading about philosophers like Thomas Sowell and individuals that told me that like free market is a unique aspect and capitalism can be mutually beneficial. I had to really kind of change and be curious about what was really being taught. And you got to understand that in this society, you can get taught a lot of different things. And in many cases, people are being indoctrinated with a philosophy that's more progressive, that centralizes power with the government and creates less opportunity. But that's the fight that we're up against, which is why we stepped into this book to kind of tell a new story, not only to conservative audiences on how they can play a leadership role for underserved communities, but to minority voters and people in those underserved communities about the history since Reconstruction, as well as the conservative philosophers that talk about the greatest piece in American history, which is the American people and empowering American people, having a more limited government and creating diverse communities is the direction that we have to go in. But so many of them are taught different things. They're taught a progressive agenda that's almost socialistic in aspect. And even persons like Bill Maher are now pushing back against woke culture as its focus around racism is kind of missing the point about us all being humans and all wanting a chance at the American dream. And instead of kind of focusing on things that bring us together, this progressive mindset is starting to kind of tear us more apart by compartmentalizing us in different groups, whether you're gay, straight, black, white, man, or female. At the end of the day, are you a good human being? Do you have good values? What's the best way to create opportunity for yourself and for your family? There's a real playbook out there that works. And the American experiment has taught us a lot. And those are the parts of history that we need to talk about, the resiliency of Americans and in the face of not having opportunity, people were able to overcome challenges and make us a great country.
Where can people, 10 seconds, where can they find your book? We're going to post it, by the way, but where can they go out, Jerron, and find your book? 10 seconds.
Sure. So you can go on Amazon. You can also go to Barnes & Noble, but go to underservedbook.com. That's underservedbook.com.
Jerron Smith, thank you so much for bringing a voice of what I believe is clarity. I'm going to encourage everyone, please go out. You want to be able to grasp the work that Jerron has taken so much time to put in to make sure that we are Americans, that we deserve better. We'll be right back.
Forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
So as you can see that there has been really just a total breakdown of the family. This is not about what you hear individuals like Joy Reid and the Breakfast Club, and I'm going to address them in just 1 second here. This is really about the breakdown of the family. I've often said this, whether I'm lecturing in a college and or another radio TV show, I've always said the same thing. And one thing about math doesn't lie. When you take two different ethnic groups, it does what those ethnicities are. Black or white, let's just use that for a reference here. If those two same groups do the two same things, exactly the same things, and here is the equation. Take a black family, a white family. If the heads of those homes, black men, if they finish college, again, both are doing the same thing, and then afterwards have a family, don't have children prior to that, there is zero difference in their economic world. Zero difference. College, wait to have children prior, and then have your kids. There is no difference. There's no such thing as systemic racism. Let me be clear. There's always going to be racism, but racism is not just whites against blacks. We know this historically. There are blacks against blacks. There are Asians against Asians, Europeans against Europeans. This calamity will always be part of the equation, but it will not stop individuals. I repeat, it won't. It can't. Math doesn't lie. Malcolm X once said something, and it's going to give me the segue to begin to address these individuals that are part of the problem. I'm going to go to a Malcolm X clip, listen to what Malcolm X said back in the 60s, and you'll get the point. Let's go to it.
Now, concerning the poll taken by Newsweek magazine, I think you said that this was the leaders who said that, who went with King and against Mr. Muhammad around 90%. I just told you a little while ago, these leaders that they call leaders, this included Lena Horne, this included Dick Gregory, and this included comedians, comics, trumpet players, baseball players. Show me in the white community where a comedian is a white leader. Show me in the white community where a singer is a white leader, or a dancer or a trumpet player is a white leader. These aren't leaders. These are puppets and clowns that have been set up over the white community and over the black community by the white community and have been made celebrities and usually say exactly what they know that the white man wants to hear.
I hope you heard what Malcolm X said back then. You don't have to subscribe to what you think Malcolm X was about. I'm not pushing, quote, a Malcolm X moment. I'm just simply saying that the same problems that Malcolm and others incurred during their time in the 50s and the 60s is the same thing now. Do you really think it's an accident, a coincidence, that the major voices in what I call the marketplace right now that allegedly speak for black and brown and white people, they're comics? These are individuals that have been hired by places like MTV, iHeartRadio, and others. And I want to focus on one in particular right now. There's a young lady that's part of the Breakfast Club. And this is when Larry Elders was on there. I think her name is Teslin. By the way, I have no problem. She makes several $1 million. This is this young lady's net worth. But yet she is the voice that continues to espouse these crazy, nonsensical issues. And again, she's the voice for black America. No, she's not. She's a buffoon. She's an individual that the white establishment, just like Malcolm X said, they put up before the people to speak. But she's incoherent. She makes no sense. Don't take my word for it. Let's go to a clip of Teslin here, and you'll hear the buffoonery that she espouses. Let's go to it.
Mr. Elder, a quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system. Okay. You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlamagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right. And what I'm asking, was it white people? So I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system or black people in charge of the system that helped break down the black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question, white or black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct. Okay. White Democrats,
well, most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people
Not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who puts them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white or black?
Who put them in charge?
Maybe that'll help you.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Do you hear the ignorance of this woman? I mean, I have so much respect for Larry Elder. I've been on Larry Elder's show before. Larry Elder helped me when I had the book that I put out that was #2 on Amazon. It was guys like Larry that helped me. But I want you to really pay attention to what this young lady was saying. I really wish I had more time just to address her. She kept saying nonsensical things. Well, who's in charge of the system? And it made no sense because no matter what Larry said, one, she was very condescending. It was hard to even watch her because she was such a moron. The way that she expressed it, so who's in charge of the system? She just kept, with some element of redundancy, she just kept saying the same thing, the system. Well, Larry said, well, it was white Democrats. No. What about the system? As if though you could separate what Larry was saying from what she was asking. The level of buffoonery this young lady exercised, it was scary. It really was because, again, she makes millions of dollars being the voice for black and brown people. She's not. She's an absolute idiot. We'll be right back.
rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
I know and I realize that this is going to be very, very controversial. And again, this is not because I like or dislike any of these individuals. I don't know them. I just really think that what is really going on is that these are individuals that have been put up, as Malcolm X said, to be the spokespeople for 13% of the population. You have to ask yourself some questions. Who's putting them up? Who's paying them? Why are they saying the things that they're saying? Have they done their homework? Where's their footnote? Can they give validity to a historical view that seemingly or should represent a common position that they take? Again, I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want to show you their salaries really, really quick, and you'll get the grasp of this. Now, let's take a look at their salaries, and I think you really, really get it here. Charlemagne, this is outside of a lot of other things he does to get paid. His net worth really is about 10+ million. This guy currently has a contract that pays him an annual salary of about $3 million. DJ Envy's annual salary, who helped host the Breakfast Club, again, $3 million. Just Hilarious has estimated net worth about $3 million as well as of 2022. Now, why is this so important? I'm a capitalist. I believe that there is nothing wrong with these individuals. I don't care if they made $100 million. What difference does it really, really make? But these are individuals, and I want everyone that's looking at me right now to really grasp this. These are individuals that are speaking not because they're getting paid from a Black Lives Matter fund. There's no mutual fund that's supporting them. That's another topic. Yep, BLM. We know through filings through the IRS, they made over $80+ million that they received. None of that money went back into the community. But people like Charlemagne and his group, they were pushing BLM, BLM, BLM. But they didn't do anything with the money other than enrich themselves. They bought homes in, quote, not black communities. They went to the white communities where predominantly individuals that are white lived in those communities. If they were so true to what they really believe, why did they go to the hood? Why did they go to areas that are predominantly black? After all, they are espousing black power, but they don't. And Charlemagne and the rest of these individuals, they don't challenge them. They push this narrative. You got to go beyond what you're looking at. Who's really pushing it? DJ Envy, again, he speaks and you think, wow, he has passion and fire and he's down with the cause, but he's ignorant. He had zero facts, and Larry Elder exposed him for the level of hypocrisy that these guys operate in all the time. Don't take my word for it. Let's go to this clip where DJ Envy, out of his own mouth, he allegedly is saying something that's factual. And people, while they were watching it, it was like, yeah, you got Larry Elder now. And very cavalier, Larry Elder just dusts this guy off, and he sat there looking like the idiot that he really is. Don't take my word. Let's go to it.
Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurship. They are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it, and a 1,000 times less than our community. Will you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese or Chinese applicant for a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against white and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement.
It's almost hard to watch this without falling off of your chair, or if you're driving listening to it, you know, it's going to a crash mode, because DJ Envy just, he was speaking as if though he knew exactly what he was talking about. Now, again, I've done the research. These are the points that they make to their guests all the time. They're forever making these same dumb, ridiculous, unsubstantiated points. And you think it's palatable because they got a large community that follow. Do you really think it's an accident that iHeart and other large media corporations, they push this? Why? They continue to have this racial divide because liberals buy into this. And the white liberals that are supporting the black liberals, like Charlemagne, like DJ Envy, they're doing it intentionally. They know the facts. They know the data. This is why we do the work here. Every single week we expose this. And one of the things that it just really, I don't know, it bothers me is when whites that are conservative, they're silent. They don't want to engage on this topic because you don't want to come off as looking as if though, oh, I don't need the racial tension. Listen, our flag that sits behind me is comprised of men and women, black and white, that fought to establish and make sure that this union could work. And by the way, when you hear the same people like Charlemagne, the same people like DJ Envy, when you hear them say, well, when has America ever been great? Let me help you, Charlemagne, since either you know this and or you're just ignorant and you don't know it. People like Frederick Douglass and others encouraged the black union guys that believed in this country, and they gave their lives, 40,000+ of them. So when you ask the question, when was America great? It was great when black lives would go out on the battlefield to make sure that America could finally live up to what it said it was really all about. It was great when almost 1 million whites sacrificed their life to say, I'll lay down my life for my black brother or my black sister, and we'll bring this union together. They gave their lives. That means that the posterity of their homes were forever altered. They wouldn't be able to have a great farm, a great wife, to go to church, to enjoy the pleasantries that this nation would be able to offer. But you would never know that when you listen to people like Charlemagne. You'll never know it when you hear people like DJ Envy. Why? Because they continue to make it a black issue. And we're going to show it in another clip. But I couldn't believe when Charlemagne actually said, well, what about white people? And I was amazed, not at the eloquence of Larry Elder. I've had, again, the privilege of meeting Larry. I've watched Larry work. I think he's one of the smartest guys that's out here, in my opinion. But I watched Larry Elder in a very stealth way say, what difference does it make what whites are doing? See, it's a joke. It's a game that they're all playing with the public. And every 4 years, I go back to what Malcolm X says, every 4 years when it's time for election, they put these charlatans like the Breakfast Club up. They put individuals like Joy Reid up. And we're going to address her in just a moment as well. They put individuals like this up for a reason. They want you to believe that they being black, they can make it. They figured it out. They can go to college. They can do all the things that are necessary as their white counterpart does. But you poor black and you poor brown people outside of their little world that's not making the millions, they believe you have such a low IQ that they become your Messiah. They become your savior. They are your mouthpiece. Do you think it is a coincidence and or an accident or just luck that these individuals are on your drive time? Do you really think for just a moment that their voices are so powerful that they're the number one voices that are out there that the white established liberal media pushes? No, there are tons of conservative voices out there. They can't afford individuals like us to speak the way we do. Why? We have science, we have history, we know the facts, we've done the research, we know that it's a lie. Why? Because we understand what their MO is really about. It's never changed. When I come back, I'm going to wrap this up, and you're going to be able to have a takeaway that you'll come to the conclusion once and for all that you don't have to be played by black and white liberals that are trying to destroy this nation. We'll be right back.
Down with the traitor, up with the star, while we rally round the flag, boys, rally once again. rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom.
Malcolm X said it best. Every 4 years, individuals come, and they come for one purpose, and that is to make sure that our communities stay divided. They don't just come with their white robes any longer. They're using individuals. Malcolm warned us that they would do just that. He said they would get a bunch of comedians and just a bunch of people that won't do the work, don't know the data, and they'll parade these individuals before black, white, brown communities for one purpose, to keep us divided, as if, though, these individuals speak for us. They do not speak for all Americans, no more than any other group speaks for an entire group of individuals. I want to leave you this last video here real quick. I thought this exchange with Larry Elder with the Breakfast Club, I think it speaks volumes. I'll let you make the judgment of that. Let's go to the clip.
In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK imploded, well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home, a strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously, and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. Charlemagne, Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists. Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship. All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations like Black Lives Matter.
You know what's very interesting to me about that is it was kind of a pre-moment that Charlemagne had. He actually, in a very vulgar way, he ascribed the N-word to Larry Elder. It was almost like, hey, don't forget, you're still, and he used the N-word. And again, I give Larry Elder a lot of kudos here that he didn't buy into it. You could hear Larry a few times when Charlemagne and DJ Envy and the young lady that was there, they were all very moronic in their ways that they were expressing. You could hear Larry kind of breathe, almost go, and a few times you could actually Larry Elder saying, wow, because not only was it insulting, it had no merit to it. There was nothing factual. What Larry Elder was able to do is what we do all the time, just laying out the facts. And this was, by the way, post 2023, he was saying that at the height of Jim Crow, at the height of some most real systemic racism that was going on in America, this is how blacks achieved. They achieved because there was still a nuclear family. There was a father that was in the home. They still were doing well in the sense of, in spite of the insurmountable odds that were against the black family, there was still this cohesiveness. There was this unit. It was still working. And you did not have 8 black women without a father raising children. The state was not the papa for the black home. It was still the black nuclear family. And everything then that Black Lives Matter and groups like Charlemagne, groups like DJ Envy, these individuals, people like Joy Reid, they keep pushing you a narrative. They're lying to you. It's not just them. There's individuals like Reverend Al Sharpton as well. I hope we have that clip. I would love to be able to show it really, really, really quick. Let's go to the clip of Reverend Al Sharpton. If we don't have it available, one of the things you're looking at right now, you're looking at the Sharptons and the Jacksons and the Jane Browns and others that were all pro-Donald Trump. Why? Because they understood economics. But the moment that Donald Trump said, hey, I'm a Republican, I'm going to change my party affiliation, I'm going to make sure that all voices are heard regardless of the color of their skin. All of a sudden, the same guy that's being prayed over by blacks, that were being celebrated by blacks, that, by the way, that when he was financing people like Jesse Jackson, his run for presidency, Al Sharpton, the community work that he was doing, now that they have these lofty jobs on NBC, all of a sudden, they're racist. The same guy that helped them, that funded them, the same Donald Trump became a racist all of a sudden, overnight. Why? It's not that he's a racist. Again, I say this almost ad nauseum. I had the opportunity, Donald J. Trump as the candidate, I went from state to state with this guy. He did very, very well. And he did very well with his message. Why? It wasn't a black message. It wasn't a white message. It was an American message. That's what we do. We keep crying and shouting for the voice of freedom here on America Shines every week. This is why we shine the light, exposing the charlatans like Charlemagne. Stay tuned. Next week, we'll be back doing it all over again. Until then, I bid you peace.
Down with the traitor.